What's up, viewers, subscribers, and agents alike? It's your boy, Light Lucifer and Prince, coming at you once again. Hopefully, everybody's doing well. Everybody's in good health. Everybody's doing good. For the most part, this will be titled Courts by Contract, Part 2. Also, with the additional title, Point of Order. If you're watching this video around children, you already know. Please remove them from your immediate vicinity, as my videos are not for children. Capiche? Capiche. Okay. Point of order. In and of itself, simple as this. Just going to just elaborate a little bit just so you can get the gist of what I'm saying. A query in a formal debate or meeting as to whether correct procedure is being followed. Now, the reason why I always say courts by contract is because most of the time people don't realize that court cases are contract. However, when you understand the depth of contract law, you'll also further understand that and interpret that contracts cannot be written by hearsay, nor can contracts be negotiated by hearsay. So now that court cases have now been understood as contracts in the general context of my videos as I previously have placed on my channel. Pardon me, my lips is big. But when it comes down to it, courts are contractual. I said it before in Erie Railroad versus Tompkins. Erie Railroad versus Tompkins lets you know particularly every case is a contract. Since 1938, the Supreme Court has ruled on it and said that cases are considered contractual. So whenever an attorney brings a claim against you, normally it's the opposition if it's not in the situation of a state or municipality or any other body politic that wishes to declare some sort of jurisdiction over you. You have to also take into consideration that this is contractual because there's no way you could commit an offense and the entire state be against you. That would also be considered a crime against humanity if that were possible, and you would be placed on an international tribunal, such as the United States has been last year. But that's neither here nor there. Nothing's going to come of it anyway, so it doesn't matter. But I'm just using that as a hypothetical scenario. Anywho, so now that they bring the claim against you, you have to realize that a person who brings a claim against you has to prove up the claim. Hearsay is not proof. Hearsay is clear, concise evidence that someone, particularly, is saying you've done something. That is not factual evidence. That is not a guarantee that what these people say is logically or factually true. Because the only person who would ever have any factual, accurate knowledge about any claim brought against you would be yourself. Hence the terminology, you have the right to be silent. It's not a right to remain silent. You have a duty to remain silent. See, get that concept of the word right out of your mind and you'll understand what a duty is as opposed to a right. You don't have to say anything. And that's the problem. Most of the time, they often try to get our permission in one way or another, either by signature, which is signing a document contractually, not knowing its full disclosure, which in and of itself is fraud. And yes, I will admit it, courts do commit fraud all the time. They commit fraud by force and intimidation. Yes, they do. So going back to that, you have to also realize that they make you acquiesce by you are not understanding the legal process in which the court system actually works. So now that they know they have you on two fronts, they know that the average person on the body politic called the distinct appellate United States of America Incorporated doesn't really know what law is. They will often try you to coerce you. And if the judge can't particularly get you to be coerced, the prosecution will come with their intimidation tactic, and then they use one of their accompaniment, also known as a lawyer, and they will try to get you to coerce because notice what about that attorney-client confidentiality. It is 100% bullshit. Straight up. Client confidentiality is a figment of your fucking imagination. Period. Don't ever believe a lawyer when they tell you that this shit is confidential. Because if it comes to a negotiated contract, they're going to go to the prosecution who now has an agent that works for them because they're both bar members and they have clear, concise evidence that you have done something or you admitted to something that they otherwise had no knowledge of. So now, when you say point of order, you would want to know, are the correct procedures being followed? Which means that the proceeding has to stop and this contract has to be negotiated because you're trying to get information off hearsay. See, this is another trick that people of the populace must learn. Just because you told a lawyer something doesn't mean that they know that you're actually telling the fucking truth. That is hearsay too. So even if they do try to backdoor you or try to snake you and tunnel you down into locking you into a contract, now you have a weapon against them because basically you can say, well, I didn't say that. See, that's when the confidentiality comes in because he or she can't even say, particularly, you did. The only way they can try to entrap you is to make you sign some type of documentation. And even though that still is not a valid contract, that is a unilateral contract signed between you and that particular entity, and you and that particular entity signed it. And even if y'all signed it without the knowledge of the court, just because you make a presentment doesn't mean you necessarily signed it. See, I try to explain to people about the court system. It is a fucking game. It is rigged. It is totally full of a bunch of pilfering, lying, fraudulent practices masquerading as a justice system. It is nothing more than a money changing system, using the populace of people as the last tier of the mechanism of the merchant sector of this country. Period. That's why lawyers are so expensive. That's why trials are so expensive. Even if you pay a lot of money, that doesn't mean that you're guaranteed a positive outcome unless you come from a family of prestige and wealth, which majority of the populace does not. So you're considered a revenue base. Now, anyone can have any variance about this. I know a lot of people might feel affected by it. That's perfectly fine, especially if this is your bread and butter. However, the only way that this is going to work if people are going to actually viably educate themselves about what they're embarking upon and what's really going on in this country as far as the court system is concerned. Because it's not about justice, people. It's all contractual. It's all about getting money from point A to point B to equal C. That's all it's about. And making a person who has a claim brought against them, making them liable. Most people are in prison or jail because of hearsay, because someone said you did something and you never rebutted the claim by point of order. You never rebutted the claim. You acquiesced. You either contracted or negotiated or signed. Either way, everybody that is in jail or prison over the continental United States in mass, a large majority of them there by contract. Period. Now, unless, of course, you harmed a person or property, as alleged, unless that person comes forward and says particularly that you did something wholeheartedly and testifies against you, that is considered a viable conviction, and that is something you can't get out of. Now, if someone's saying you did something and the prosecution is trying to speak on behalf of that person, point of order. You cannot speak on behalf of anybody else, same as I can. If you can't go into a bank and cash a check on behalf of a relative or somebody that's disabled, right? For the sake of making sure that their infirmity or whatever, it can be alleviated by your acting on behalf of them, you have to have signed documentation to do that. So in order for you to have signed documentation to do that, this is one of the reasons why lawyers or prosecutors or anyone of the ilk always makes people sign statements. And you just learned that in less than 10 minutes. Serious. I know it's hard for a lot of people to believe, but this is very true. Courts are contractual. All contracts are written up and drafted with a specific intent to extort money from the person who signs it. Yeah, that part. Because whenever they say you're charged with something, trust me, it's the same going to a grocery store, clothing store, shopping on Amazon, whatever. It's a charge. And a charge usually requires a fee. And a fee requires to be paid in full before the merchandise can be considered yours. So start thinking like that. Start thinking in the business context. And stop thinking like Law and Order on TV. Never works that way. Never has, never will. First time viewing my channel, like and subscribe. Agents, do not contact me whatsoever. I do not consent, nor do I oblige to any invisible or hidden contracts. No adhesion contracts whatsoever. Simple. If you also like to learn more about this and you're a general member of the populace with no affiliations to governmental entities, nor do you work for the law establishment, please feel free to contact me whenever you feel. It is just that simple. Stay tuned for the next upload. Peace, light, love. Y'all take care.